Sweet. So we're good to go recording wise. I wanted to first off thank everybody for jumping on. I know nobody owns their schedule anymore. Their days are completely slammed with everything going on with their gym. But Josh has been fantastic. Their entire company's been incredible to me over the many years that we've worked together and watched that software develop, but also watch the company grow, which is really cool. I've been a big fan of it. Part of one of the benefits of being loyal is that good people are going to put together a great product, right? So where it was from the start to where it is today, it's probably scary for them to look at what they used to do, that used to wow us then. But now it's probably better than ever. And now more than ever, this is a solution for all you guys that own brick and mortars, but then also people that are currently training clients that don't have the access to facilities to be able to scale what you're doing, not just save what's going on, but really thrive in the situation, because you're utilizing these times to build your foundation, but you have an opportunity to really grow. So I think Josh is going to bring up a lot of really good points for you guys from a business side of things, not just utilizing the software. I think we will get into that. So part of it is going to be maybe the ABCs of Train Heroic. The next things are probably things that you probably aren't utilizing. Most people utilize the software 20-30% of its capabilities. And if you could start getting to understand how you could really get entrenched into the software, it will really help you tremendously. And then also, you have access to, one of the founders is seeing hundreds, if not thousands of coaches interacting on their platform, and what are the best practices? What are the things that are actually helping them right now? So you get to start right now on third base, and all you have to do is just take it home. You got to do a little bit of work, right? But there's so much that's already done for you. A great example for me is we still have not built our drill library, our individual drill library. And you guys know how anal I am about I want things done a certain way. Not because I'm 100%, I feel 100% about the way that somebody else online teaches something, but it's good enough to get it going, and then I could get it right later on. And what we've known is the best thing that we've done is when a kid says, "What is this drill?" we build a video for that. And then now we build our library that we're able to start to implement. So don't let any of these things hold you up. And I will just encourage you guys just to get it out there. Most of you guys already have it, and some of you guys are jumping on it later, and you're in the earlier stages of it. What I can tell you is not only will it save your business, but it will probably open up multiple different revenue stream options for you long term. Nick is a good example. CJ, with what you offer in regards to baseball and your development with pitchers, there's a huge opportunity for you there. And Tommy with the rehab, Dave with his group. So there's tons of opportunity for everybody. I think you just got to take advantage of it. And now more than ever is a window. And so I'm super excited about Josh coming on. I'm appreciative of it. But I also know that if you pay attention to things and ask your questions, it will make a big difference. So why don't you go ahead and take the driver's seat, Josh?
Cool. Let me see if I can navigate this and share my screen here. That's the token tech guy. I always feel like I'm being judged if I can't do this right. All right. Bam, can you see this?
Yes, we're good.
Beautiful. Okay. So you guys, I've got a couple of goals today. And first and foremost, I want this to be valuable for you. The last thing that anybody in the world needs is to hear me talk. So I'll try to be brief, to the point, and really relevant. I'm going to try to touch on a few things. The overarching theme is really meant to be not so Train Heroic centric, but more your business centric. And I'll talk about how we've worked to solve some of those things for our coaches. But I don't also want this to be like a commercial. By no stretch are we the only way to do this, right? So I'll talk about the solution and how to get there. And I'll show you how we can make that easy. I mean, think of us like the easy button, but there's other ways to do it. And I'll get into all the specifics. So the theme today is everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face, right? And that's something that Mike Tyson said. It's funny maybe to quote Mike Tyson to start, but I mean, think about it, right? If anybody here has gotten into a fight, you have a certain plan, you get punched in the face, right? If you're not good at fighting like me. And then you've got to react and respond. right? And that's kind of the situation that we're in. I think specifically with this COVID-19 deal is we had a plan, right? And we got punched in the face. As an industry, we got punched in the face. And we have to react to that. We got to stay on our feet. And if we fell down, we got to get back on our feet. But, it's like maybe round one is done. I think this thing's going to be several rounds. And at least we need to be ready for it to go several rounds, right? We got to get our conditioning to the point where we can go several rounds. We got to get we have to have the pieces in place to go several rounds, because as business owners, we have a real responsibility to everybody, from ourselves to our family, to our employees, to our athletes, to run strong businesses. So that's kind of what I want to focus on today is how we react and respond to that. So just from an agenda standpoint, what I want to get through today is I'll really briefly in 1 minute go through who the heck I am, who we are, what we see like our place in the world being. I want to talk about your job, and I put in parentheses your new job, right? And how to keep your athletes on their training journey. Because I firmly believe, and we firmly believe as a company, if you can figure out how to keep your athletes on their training journey, right, keep them training, you're the one who's going to supply and provide that direction, that coaching, that mentorship, that progress, right? You're the one responsible to create progress in their life. If you can keep them on their training journey, you got a real business. You got real value. So we just view our place as a tool to help you guys do that. And then we'll walk through things like how to connect with your athletes. So the walkthrough is really like a demo, but I want to walk you guys through how you connect with your athletes, right? It's a little bit different today than it was, before COVID-19. How to communicate with them. Again, very different than what it was, than how to coach them. So that's the game plan today. Again, I'll try to be brief and to the point, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. So just to get started, for anybody that doesn't know me, my name is Josh Sutchar. I was one of the founders of Train Heroic. We founded this thing in 2012 in Chicago. Just in the beginning of the webinar asked, where are we today? We're in Denver. The company's in Denver. There's 22 of us. We initially founded the company in Chicago. About 4 years later, we moved to Boulder, Colorado. We received some funding from a company called Peakswear, who owns a couple brands, Train Heroic being one, and others, Training Peaks, if anybody's familiar with that, and then a couple other software companies in very similar spaces but different markets. So today we serve 6,000 coaches, 550,000 athletes. And I don't say that to boast, but what I want to kind of point out is we have a really interesting vantage point. And for that reason, I think we have a real responsibility to our coaches and to the industry, in that we see a lot of coaches doing a lot of different things. And it ranges for us from the high school to college to pros to tactical to the private sector. And so we're seeing so many different ways of doing this, so many different needs in the market, but there are common threads that we can pull from all of those. So that's enough of Train Heroic. One last thing I'll point out is I talked about kind of our place in the world, and really like we have this vision of a world where there's millions of, we call connected heroes, right? Who find joy in the journey of their training. And so if we think about that, like we really believe that our job is to help athletes connect to you, the coach, and to really find joy in that journey of training. So you'll see as we jump into this, that the way that we prescribe or suggest that the job should be done always kind of leans into this. Let's make it fun. Let's make it interesting. Let's make it engaging. And I know that training is not always fun, but we think that if we can do our part to take out maybe some of the monotony, or really establish a real connection between coaches and athletes, we can keep them on that training journey. They'll find joy in that process and stay on the journey, right? To kind of get to where they want to go. So this is just something to think about. Okay. So in software, we have this concept. There's a framework called jobs to be done. Okay. It applies much further than software. I've really thinking about like accomplishing or achieving anything, even in your business. Think about the jobs to be done in the business, right? So what are the jobs that we have as a strength coach? If I own my own facility, I got to have, there's a job to clean the facility, right? There's a job to get people signed up. There's the job to make sure that, payments are happening. There's the job to make sure that we have just thoughtful packages and plans for people, right? There's many jobs. Then there's the job to train the athlete. There's the job to connect with the athlete, right? There's the job to make sure that there's meaningful programming, right? There's different jobs. So think about your job as a coach, right? What are the actual jobs to be done? And when this whole thing started, we had, literally thousands of coaches hitting us up. We're not set up for that either. We're a small, I mean, there's 22 of us, right? And all these coaches, from people you're watching play on TV to people that we've never heard of are coming up to us saying, hey, I need to deliver training to our athletes. We need this. We need to deliver training to our athletes. And so as a business, we were kind of looking at this perceived problem and thinking to ourselves, gee whiz, a coach has this perception that their job is to deliver training to their athletes. And I think as a business or as an industry, we need to kind of step back from that and say that is a job. That's a job of a coach to deliver training to their athletes. But imagine if that was the job. What would that look like when we were actually having athletes walk into the facility? We would write a training session on a whiteboard and, fade to the background. And so my challenge to those coaches, and really we view this as almost as our responsibility, is to teach people this idea of like, this is how you do your job. There's many of them, but remotely, because it's the same job, but it's just done differently. Right. So the jobs to be done by a coach, there's specifics, and I kind of outlined 4 bullets here, but really ultimately it's to create progress in your athletes' lives. Right. That's why they hire you. They hire you to create progress in their life. They have a specific goal. It might be to be a professional lacrosse athlete. It might be to run a 440 at the NFL Combine because they want to go to the NFL, or it could be something that's, I don't know, bigger or smaller than that. But your job as the coach and why they hired you is to create progress in their life. And again, we believe that our place on that journey for the athlete and for you as a coach is we need to keep them on their training journey. But we know if we can keep them connected to you, you can create progress in their life, right? So we'll break that down today in really 4 distinct jobs. And there's more that a coach does, but ultimately it's connecting with your athletes, right? So we'll talk about how you did that before and how you might do it now. Coaching them, right? What did they do today? Do we watch them move? Can we adjust their training? Those types of things. Communicating with them and educating them. All right. So that was your job. That was your job before COVID-19, right? Well, if we look at the situation, right? And again, I'll come back to the slide like 10 times, but we had a plan on how we were going to do that. We got punched in the face, right? So what's your job today, right? Same thing. It's the same exact thing. And I accidentally took that last bullet off, but to educate them as well, right? Your job is the same thing. So we're asking you to do the same job, but you're really limited now in how you can do it because we don't have physical contact with our athletes, at least in the short term, right? So we still have the job to create progress in their life. We still need to do specific things like connect with them, coach them, communicate, and educate. So what I want to talk through briefly, and then we'll get into a walkthrough of how we'd suggest that you might do it, is let's just go through each of those jobs, right? So just what I want to do is almost like take this step back a little bit and just think, okay, hey, I have the job to connect with my athlete, right? What did that look like before? It meant that I was talking to them in person, right? They might have came in for like a sort of like a fundamental session, or they might have came in to have like a an assessment or something, right? We were connecting with them in person, right? When they walked into the facility, we'd watch them perform, right? That's how we connected with them, right? And that was our plan. That's how we were going to do this. Again, our plan had to change, right? So how do we connect with them today, right? It needs to be digital and remote now, right? But we have to create that same feeling, that real connection, right? So that connection might be our initial connection to them, but then going forward, every time they walk into the gym, we have to connect with them, right? So how we do that, and I've just kind of thrown some quick screenshots on here. We'll actually jump into the software, but here's some ways that coaches that are using Trainer Oak are doing that, how they're connecting, right? So one example is, this is me just looking, if I was an athlete actually on the app, right? I'm seeing what that coach is prescribed to me on that day of training. So you see kind of a calendar up top, but there's a message for that athlete. It's a really creative way to connect with them. But when they walked into the facility before, you might have told them what they should expect, what today's training should be, what their goal should be in today's training, right? How they should feel, right? Maybe the equipment that they need for that training. Hey, we've got those boxes set up there. We've got those dumbbells set up there. We've got this, 40 yards of turf, and this is what we're going to do. Like, think about those types of interactions. Well, they just need to be digital and remote, but we have to create that same feeling of, certainty. Hey, I know what I'm supposed to do. I know what my goals are, and this is how we'll do it. So we'll walk through the specifics, right? And then here's a couple other examples of just using messaging to do the same thing. So connecting. And in this first example, this coach, Major Payne, is connecting to Forrest Gump, right? So that's a one-on-one connection. That coach is directly messaging that specific athlete and ask the question, right? Like, hey, how far did you run today? And how's that foot feeling, right? And then he must have saw the training and say, hey, well done, right? The athlete responded back with the GIF, hey, thank you, or GIF. I'm not sure how you say that. I say GIF. So the second example is doing the same thing, but with a whole group, right? So, hey, I'm connecting with this whole group of, in this case, Navy SEALs, right? I'm saying, hey, big day tomorrow, you're going to be sore from today, right? And then I'm connecting with them, I'm making them laugh, right? I send a GIF, hey, I'm going to make you boys strong, right? Something for major pain. And then you get some interaction back, right? So the athletes communicating with each other. Again, that might, in the old world, look like two athletes walking to the door together. They're talking, there's banter, there's back and forth, there's real connection, right? And you're creating that in a group environment or a one-on-one type environment. So that's one job to be done, right? Again, let's step back. What are the jobs to be done as a coach? One is to connect, right? Two is to coach. Okay, so what did this look like before? We were able to see our athletes physically moving in person, right? We watched them squat, we watched them lunge, we watched them run, we watched them sprint, right? When they were done with the training session, if we weren't able to see the 20 that we're training at a time, we might look at their training cards and we might go through those and see, hey, what are their numbers, right? And so we were able to do that all in person. Again, that was our plan. That's how we were going to do that. Well, something happened, right? And so how might we do that? How might we do that today? Right? So coaching your athletes today it probably looks like if we're doing sort of assessment of technique and movement, we're probably watching videos of them moving, right? And then we're still, if we can, we're reviewing their training cards and their progress, but it's digital, right? And then there's also this kind of concept of competition. And so before, when we were physically in a space together, we had the luxury of having athletes sprint next to each other, right? Or train next to each other. And so we can create those environments and those opportunities for athletes. And here's just a couple examples. Again, we'll dive in during a walkthrough quickly, but here's a couple of just examples, right? So this first example you're seeing here is a coach actually using the app, and they're actually scanning through, these are training cards for the athletes. This is a really abbreviated version. You can see more, but you can see if the athlete trained, what their readiness was, how long they trained, what their perceived exertion was, right? Their RPE, and then you can see total volume. So this should maybe bring up a red flag if I'm seeing a readiness score of like a 2.8, right? I go through the cards every day and I know that Aldo Rain typically has, a 3.5 or a 4 is his readiness. It's a 2.8, right? I might direct message him right now. And so what you're doing there is, one, you're coaching him, right? Hey, what's happening? You might adjust his training because of it. You're also connecting with them and you're also communicating with them. So you're doing a lot of the jobs. Just, you could do this while you're, sitting down somewhere in your house, scanning through, just like you would Instagram, right? So we want to give you access to that. Again, there's other ways to do this. We're not the only way to do it, right? You could send out Excel docs, right? You can have athletes fill those out and send them back. You're just going through email to do that. That's a free way to do it. You could text them. How did training go today? They can text you back, right? What we're trying to do here is just bring all those solutions together. The Facebook group, right, is what you have with like team training on Train Heroic. The text message is what you have with the message boards, and then the actual training is like what you have with an Excel doc that would be like linked to video, right? So the second screenshot you're seeing is, again, just focused on the job of coaching. You have like, we're inside of a training session here. So we're prescribing back squat. We've got 10, 8, 5 as a rep scheme. With this specific athlete, we gave them the specific load. We could program at percentages if we want, but in this case, we're programming 135 and 155. Maybe this is, personal training with this athlete. I know what he needs to do. I'm telling him what to do. And so not only that, I'm telling him tempo. Everything comes with like a movement demo on Train Heroic. But again, if you're using something like Excel, you're just hyperlinking that right to a video. Right? But we're telling him tempo. We're giving him some specifics. So if you don't have a barbell, we're going to squat jump. These are max effort, right? Stick the landing and rest 10 seconds between reps. Okay, 3x20 on the squat jumps and go to failure on your final set, and you get 50, right? So this is just the coach rest 2 minutes between sets. So the coach is giving some specific instruction or direction on that day. Again, they're coaching. That's the job, right? And then this last screenshot just shows the ability to compete. So this coach, we have in Train Heroic the option of like tagging something as a leaderboard, and it encourages competition. It basically allows athletes to kind of virtually look across the rack, if you will, and to see what other people have done on a specific section within their training. So maybe they have a certain result that they're shooting for. Okay, so again, we're talking a couple of jobs so far, right? Let's just go back, connecting, right, and coaching. So now let's talk about communicating. And this is maybe tough for coaches to hear, but here's my perspective. People don't train with you because you have awesome programming. They don't go to your gym because you're the best programmer around, right? They go there because they love you, and they train every day because the same reason. That's why they hired you, and that's why they stick with you. That's why they tell their friends to go train with you. And I think this part of it, the communication part, is what we do best for our coaches. It's what we've really leaned heavily into. And I think when we talk about like this idea of connection, the communication side of it is what really enables true connection, right? So how do we communicate before? It was like body language, right? Cav is really good at this, but Cav seems to be the guy that's like very intuitive. He knows how you're feeling, when you're feeling it. There's just something kind of inherent in his personality that allows him to do that. But I bet in this environment, being disconnected physically, it makes that a little bit tougher, right? So like when you watch somebody walk into the facility, you see them walk in every day and they're fired up, right? They have this certain body language. Well, the days that their head is down, you're going up to them as coach saying, "Hey, what's happening?" And so that's just an opportunity when you see them, and that's how we used to do this before. Is you'd be able to actually measure body language, right? Then you have like this communication in person. So that might just be the answer. Hey, how you doing? It might be a simple, hey, this is what we're going to do today, right? This is what the training's about today. It could be carrots and sticks, depending on what the job is to be done as a coach. But it could be, hey, there's some reward for training. Hey, we need to snap in gear. Like what's happening? We need some urgency. Whatever the communication is, we were doing it in person, right? And we were doing it before a session when people walked in. We did it during a session as they were training, and we did it after the session, right? And we did it all in person. And again, that was before, right? We had a plan. That's how we were going to do it. It's got to change, right? So how do we do that today then? Right. Well, again, it needs to be digital and remote. It needs to be before, during, and after a session. And I have the same actual screenshots because I think the job that we're doing is actually going in two directions here, right? So this message from a coach within a training session, that's actually part of the communication, right? The message that we saw within the actual session where you're telling them tempo, things like that, another way to communicate, right? And then you have like the actual messaging. And that's an awesome way to communicate, again, before, during, and after. I've seen some really creative things by coaches. These message boards you can shoot video, like just live on your phone. So I've seen quite a bit that coaches will jump on the message board and just jump on video in the beginning of the day and at the end of the day. And the beginning of the day might be like, yo, I bet your guys' hips are super sore. I just added a pigeon stretch to today's training. Spend 5 minutes there. It's going to feel like an eternity. Literally spend 5 minutes, switch it up after 2.5 minutes on each leg and report back, right? Or, hey, here's me actually doing the max push-ups at the end of the session, try to beat me. And the coach is like recording that. So again, you're communicating, you're connecting, you're encouraging the right behavior to bring together this community. And then at the end of the day, we're seeing similar things where a coach is on the message boards, they're shooting a video and they might be talking about something educational. Like, hey, if you guys are struggling to get enough protein, here's a couple easy hacks, right? Just, whatever it is that your athletes need. If there's a certain place that you fit in, typically just think, okay, there's the same job needs to be done. You need to do that job. That's why you are who you are and why your athletes train with them. And if you just don't do that job anymore, there's a real gap in their expectation of what they're going to get from you, and also what they need from you, right? So anywho, that's long-winded, but all of the jobs that you guys are doing, I'm confident that we can help you guys do. And so really the message is, hey, your job is still the same thing. Right. So we just need to be creative in how we're doing that. And this is something that I want to come back to is like, and I will consistently in talking with our coaches is like, I'll be the last person to tell you that technology is the answer. It's just a tool. It's an answer, but just like a hammer, depends on how you swing that thing. Right. Like a hammer can be a waste of space. It can collect dust. A hammer can build a house that you can live in for a long time. Right. So it's all about how you swing the hammer, and technology is just a tool. And Cav made a good point in the beginning that I think, for some of our customers, they're utilizing 30% of Train Heroic. And now there's a real need probably to utilize closer to like 70 or 80% of it. I think if you utilize 50% of it, you're probably doing many of the jobs that you want to do. My goal today is to walk through quickly how we might be able to do those jobs specifically, I'll get into programming and a walkthrough there. So let me just pause because I think I'm probably talking too much. Kev, how are we feeling so far, and where maybe can I clarify anything, and then I can dive into like a demo?
No, I think it's good. I think the one thing, that I want to reiterate to everybody is that, you have an option. You don't have to coach, but if you choose to coach, you have to figure out a way to do it as a deliverable, right? And if you want to do that, there's two things that I will tell you in regards to technology. Technology makes you feel like you're up to date to other people. These guys are on top of their game. They got this stuff in order, right? But when you're just sending out an Excel spreadsheet, when you're sending out like a workout in a text, it then makes them feel like you're not as ready to go. You're not a professional. The second thing that I will address is the fact that utilizing the platform, it might be hard to get everybody communicating on Train Heroic to start, but once you use Instagram and social media and or text messages and a phone call to say, hey, listen, get them on Train Heroic, you'll start to build a rhythm where they will, when they press that TH app, when they press that app, they're in their mindset, they're connecting with you, right? Communication with me is like through Voxer. So like when you're touching that app, you're thinking, I'm going to talk to Cav, or I'm going to talk to my staff. You want to have your athletes in that same asynchronous model where it's compartmentalized, where when they press that button, they know that they're in kind of game mode or training mode. And that allows them to think like, this is access to my coach, to my gym, to my community that they belong. And you want them to go there for that reason. And the more you can send them there, the better it's going to be. One of the techniques that we use, and we could talk about strategies like tactics, is if you're having trouble connecting with a kid on Train Heroic, it's not Train Heroic's fault. It's the way you're communicating with them. So you have to start the communication one way, right? I like to say, hey, how you doing? Listen, I sent you your program. I sent you a message on Train Heroic. Check it out. Let me know. Because I know they're going to respond to me in the platform in which they're comfortable with. I got to get them into something new. So I basically send them to, I just open, like if there's a traffic jam, I'm opening that up to where I want them to go. And I'm making sure that they go to those areas. So those are just simple tactics. Don't ever get bogged down because it's taking too much work in the beginning. This is scalability at its best. That's the key. The key is to be able to be in the same mindset every time you're in that app. So I think this technology allows you to be able to have multiple tools in your toolbox, but also allows you to be able to be more efficient with your time, which I think everybody is looking for, especially today.
Sweet. Let's jump in. And again, you guys, I'm going to be brief. I'm going to just scratch the surface on this stuff. Let's do this. Let me jump out of here.
And we'll open up to Q&A, guys, afterwards. So if he's going through this and you have questions, we could definitely, dive into that.
Cool. So, here's what I'd say. There's two sides to this platform. There's the web side, which we're looking at now. Coaches will use the web quite a bit. The web will give you the best experience, especially when you're programming. But there's an awesome mobile experience for you as a coach. Your athletes, they'll exclusively use mobile. When I say mobile, I'm talking about like using the app, right? Whether I have an Android or an iPhone, I'm using an app as an athlete. That's how they're going to get this. Again, as a coach, I think start on a computer. There's a few things that you can't do on a phone, like some of your account creation stuff, creating teams, inviting athletes, things like that. But you can do almost everything on your phone now, and we'll continue to build and iterate on the phone. So I'm going to dive into the coach's experience on the phone. But what I want to first do is just talk about this first job, right? So if our first job is, as a coach, just in today's context, connecting with your athletes, right? How do we do that? So I want your eyes to be oriented to the left-hand side of the screen, right? You have this athletes is the first place you'll see. We have teams, a library, analytics, and reports. We're going to start here with athletes. And so athletes can be organized into groups. We call those groups teams. And they also can just be connected directly to you. They don't need to belong to a team. Okay, so if the first thing I need to do is connect with my athletes, I need to think, hey, how do I want to train that athlete? Am I training them personally, one-on-one, or am I going to train them as part of a larger group, right? A big opportunity I see just in the industry in general is you have all these schools closing, right? And so they're going to private facilities now, or they're seeking private facilities or private coaches like you guys. And what we're seeing quite a bit of is our coaches are inviting big groups, teams, after talking with their coach. They're creating teams on Train Heroic and just connecting with those athletes and providing training. in a couple of clicks. So I want to talk through some of that. But let's start first by how to actually do that mechanically. So under athletes, you're going to hit invite in the top right, okay? This is how I'm connecting with them. I'm actually creating a connection so I can communicate, I can coach, and all that, right? So the first thing, I need to decide how I'm going to train them. Is it one-on-one or is it with a team or a group, right? If it's one-on-one, I'm going to hit next. I'm going to punch in their email, right? So we got Jason on the call, right? Let's imagine I'm training Jason. I'm going to throw in his email. I can put some custom message here, right? Let's get this started, right? And I'm going to send an invite to Jason. It's a real invite, Jason. So here's the thing. Right now, Jason's going to get this invite in his email. Hey, Major Payne is the name of the coach on this account, wants to connect with you, okay, on Train Heroic, right? He'll get that custom message too. It's my job as a coach to make sure that when he gets there, there's something on his calendar, okay? So I'm going to actually, even before he joins, I'm going to be able to click on his calendar. Every athlete that we're connected with has their own training calendar. Okay, let me maximize the screen a little bit. So there's tons of efficiencies that we can create for you here. You can create a session from scratch, but you'll see this option in your library on the left-hand side. You can actually design training plans. So, again, just like you can today, we're not the only tool to do this. I could have like folders and folders of programs in Excel, right? So when an athlete calls me or texts me and wants to train with me, I'm emailing him an Excel file. It's the same exact setup here, right? So I've built training plans in my library, and we'll dive into how to do that quickly, but I have a shortcut in the top right-hand corner, okay? It says add from our library. And I can go to programs, any program that I've created, right? So, Jason's a tactical athlete. He's about to go on deployment. So I have this 4-week deployment with no equipment program built for him. And he wants to start training on Monday. So I'd say, hey, for this athlete that I just invited, I'm going to go ahead and start his calendar on the 27th, right? And I'm going to hit OK. So I'm adding this program that I've built in my library once. I'm adding it to his calendar. And so here we are. We have the program set up, right? And I can make any adjustment I want, right? So maybe, hey, he's only going to train 4 days a week. So I might come here and actually just come and edit training sessions for him. This is just a starting point. It's just like an Excel doc. Again, it's a template. I can do the save as thing, right? So that's what we're able to do here. And so I'm now connected with Jason. If there was some like financial relationship here, I'm actually delivering real value for him. Okay? And that's doing it one-on-one. Right? So let's step back to athletes again. And let's imagine that I get a call, hopefully I'm making the call to East High School. And I know that they closed down. They've got this football program that's phenomenal, but they don't have a strength coach. And they need me in a bad way. So I call their sport coach or I call their AD, hey, this is a value we want to deliver. We want to give everybody access to a sport-specific training plan, whatever your stick is, right? So let's go and invite the athletes, right? In this case, we're inviting them to a team or to a group, right? And we're going to hit next. We're going to punch in we're going to select the team, okay? In this case, they're not going to be part of one of my teams, so I'm going to go create a new team for them for East High School. Again, I'm entering their email addresses, okay? There's another mechanism to invite people to a team. It's using an access code. So if I didn't have the email addresses of the 100 athletes, I could give an access code to the coach, right? And say, hey, every athlete's going to sign up and download the app and type in this access code, right? And again, we can get into those. We'll support you guys with stuff like that. But if I wanted to do that, I'm going to go to teams on the left-hand side, and I'm going to create a new team. Okay, so I'm going to hit create team, and again, it's East High School. In fact, this is their football team. So it's East High School football. I create the team. The team, just like that athlete we looked at, has a blank calendar, right? And so I can either design training specifically for the team, but I probably already created a 4-week football preseason program or something, right? Because I'm doing this 10 times because I can do it in a couple clicks. And so because of that, I'm going into my library. I'm going to my programs. And let's imagine this said, 4-week football preseason, right? I select the start date. Okay, go. So what happens here is this invite, either I emailed an invite to 100 athletes or I gave that code to a coach who's giving it to 100 athletes, but there's now a calendar that's being shared by 100 athletes, right? And they're now connected. They're connected to me, right? So that's how easily we can do this. Now I get a call from the coach. Hey, we went to overtime and the training tomorrow will, our guys are crushed. In real time, I can come here and actually just make a quick edit. okay, to a training session. I can dial the volume back. I can change movements. If, hey, our guys are small and they're weak and they're slow or whatever it is, you can make adjustments in real time. And again, it doesn't need to be something done external, like to a high school locally. Think about your own gym and that setup. So if I click teams here on the left-hand side, one thing I've done is just to kind of demonstrate is, we have 2 teams set up. We have our washed up meatheads and we have strong is beautiful, right? And so really internally, I'm thinking these are for our adult males. These are for our adult females, right? But adult male isn't really like a fun team to be a part of, right? So I'm creating a creative name, washed up meatheads, right? Same thing on the female side, right? Like adult females, not that interesting. Like I don't want a shirt that says adult female, but strong is beautiful seems like a cool shirt. I'd wear that. So think about some of these things too as you're doing this. But I've got 2 teams, so that allows me as a coach to train the whole facility and all of our members just with 2 calendars. Now, I might do quite a bit of personal training. Again, every athlete, if I were to click on athletes, every athlete that we train, every athlete that's a part of our team, every athlete that I've connected with, they have their own personal calendar. So I just need to understand what level of service do I need to provide, and I can train athletes or clients individually and personally or on a team. And there's so many instances, we especially see this in sports, like where we have an athlete that's on a team, but they have a lower body injury, right? Or they need a specific tweak. And we see it all the time, like in the pro world. Quarterbacks are just not bench pressing. So the coach might go into that athlete's calendar and adjust a session just for that athlete. They're still on the team. They still have the general training for the team, but like we're just tweaking something for whatever reason, short term, long term. It could be something that we do all the time. So, again, if the job is to connect, that's how we're doing it. Okay. Now, when we connect, before we get to the next job, which is to coach, we had to deliver programming, right? They need to know what to do, right? That's one of the reasons they hired us. So what I showed you in just like taking a program and throwing it on their calendar, that's the easy button, right? But that's once you've designed the training. Let's go actually into the library and let's quickly just design a training program, okay? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit create program, and I'm going to say, hey, this is that 4-week, off-season football, right? I want it to be 4 weeks long and 3 sessions per week, and I'll create the program. So this is going to look really familiar, and hopefully you guys start to see this, but this looks just like the calendar. The big difference here is it's week 1 and week 2, so there's no dates, right? It just lives in our library, and we're going to then put it on an athlete's calendar or a team's calendar so we can coach them. Right, but to start, I'm going to hit create session on week 1, day 1, and I get this blank template. Okay, and so what we're going to do is our eye is going to go right to the middle of the screen, and we're going to add a block. Okay, our training sessions are designed in blocks, so you have A, B, C, so on and so forth, right? And so if I go to add a block, I'm going to search for a movement. So the first thing I'm thinking, okay, hey, we're going to back squat today, right? So I'm searching for back squat. If I search squat, like this search will work like Google. The more general you are, the more options you're going to get. And we've got like, 1,500 movements or so in our library. You can add to this at any time, right? So if I wanted to program back squat, I click on back squat. The movement's added. If I look at the details, I also have an instructional video, and there's coaching points attached to this too. So, if you're using Excel, you're adding back squat, right? You're adding the sets and reps, and then you're probably hyperlinking. We try to make that easy just by doing that. It's done once. Anytime you use back squat, it's there. And if I wanted to add a new exercise, like let's say, okay, after back squat, we're going to do max effort broad jumps or something, right? So I search broad jumps, and I have a specific way to coach it. So I'm not going to use Train Heroic's broad jump. Okay, I'm going to create my own. So I'm going to hit new exercise. I'm going to hit new exercise, and I'm adding that exercise, right? So I'm going to go broad jump, and hey, I'm also going to go into YouTube quickly, and I'll show you just how fast. YouTube broad jump. I could film my own stuff and throw it on YouTube. All of our movements. So here, broad jump, a 16-second broad jump. I'm just going to grab this. I'm going to paste it in here. It's done. I have this video. It's set up on this exercise. It's only in my library, right? Hey, every time I program this, I'm going to program it as reps. I might throw in some coaching points. Feet, hip, width, apart. How about feet? There, down there. And hip width apart. Whatever your coaching points are, you can throw those on there too. You don't need to do all this stuff up front. You can just program the movement. You can always come back and adjust. But now we have this movement, broad jump, in our library. It's now attached to this video, and it's always there, right? Now I've got block A is back squat. Block B is broad jump. I'm going to add my rep scheme. So I had 3 sets. I want 3 sets of 5 on the back squat. Each of these columns can be customized. So maybe it's low, just weight, and it's blank. And maybe I say like build to a heavy set of 5. And I want you to rest 2 minutes between sets. Okay. Maybe I am more prescriptive. So these are drop downs, and maybe I want to use a percentage. So we house the athletes, we store their working max or their training max. And if you were to program something like 55, 65, and 75, they're going to see real numbers. They can adjust it so we can coach, right? We can see what they actually did. And then broad jump, I want 3 sets of 3. And I'm going to say, max effort with every rep. Must rest, 30 seconds between attempts. And I want you to stick the landing.
There's 2 things I want to point out to you guys that are kind of like overly cautious around like what you deliver to your athletes, because I know that this was a problem for me, and then once I kind of got over it, it opened my eyes to things. So let's just say you're looking at that video and you're like, I don't like the way that's done. You did exactly what Josh did, which is you created your own video and then you put it in there. You could also look at your library or Train Heroic's library. So if you could only have your stuff as well, which is great, but this is get it going and then get it right. Don't let this stuff slow you down is the first thing. Your clients don't care. They know what you're looking at, right? So that's something that's really, really good for you to, build, but don't let it stop you completely. Get it going, and then you could always go back and change it. The other thing that I think is super important in regards to like the efficiency of the use of it is when you go to search for an exercise, you could select by dumbbells, barbell, body weight. Like you have the ability to start to organize your searches based upon what you're trying to deliver. And that becomes really, really nice when you say, hey, equipment based, which is very limiting right now for some of your athletes. So if they don't have a barbell, they don't have a cable, you could actually select what your athletes have and work off of that, especially knowing that people right now have limited equipment. So it becomes actually easier for you to adjust people's programs than ever before. Instead of you trying to come up with ideas, you have a database of what you approved, as well as allowing what the athlete has access to.
Oh, I love it. And you guys, there's nuance to this, right? Like, as an example, if I had back squat and broad jump, I'm a little limited on time. I want to pair these movements. I want this to be a superset. Let's pair them. I now have A1 and A2, right? And I'm going to add another block to this training, and we're going to do some other movements. There's some really quick, easy things to do. So let's imagine, we can't back squat. I forgot. We have no equipment, right? You can come in and swap the movement out quickly, right? The athlete actually can do the same thing. They can't do something, they can swap it, and you see that as a coach. When
an athlete swaps an exercise on your dashboard, it has a line through it and it has like a yellow mark. So you actually see their adjustment. It's not like it's like, oh, you don't know why they made that change. You actually see their adjustment, which a good example would be when I work with some of my athletes, if I programmed out, let's say 2 weeks or 4 weeks at a time, and then an athlete says, I didn't have a trap bar, or an athlete says, I didn't have this. The next week I go in there and actually adjust it for them, so that they don't have to make that next adjustment. And that 10 seconds of work on my end showed the personalization that of care that I'm giving. And it makes my life 10 seconds harder, but in the long run, it's so appreciated to the athlete.
Yeah. And you guys pick and choose where that level of service is necessary. Right. And you have the ability to do it. Again, you can go these kind of broader strokes where it's all team based. They're really hyper-personalized. Everything's individual. But probably the answer is somewhere in the middle, paying attention. And we'll get into, when we actually look at the training cards, we'll get into how you can kind of respect your own time, but still deliver high level of service. So Cav, good point here with swapping exercises. You see this a lot. So that maybe put in an option for them. Hey, swap with dumbbell split squats if needed. I don't have a barbell. Cool. I'm doing dumbbell split squats. All right. So anyways, as I go, this can be as long as I want, right? A1, 2, A3, A4, A, B, C, right? There's no limitation here. One thing I'll point out is if I go to program a movement, everything that we program so far is sets and reps. We're tracking all the specifics. That stuff's great. As a coach, it gives me the option and visibility to see all the, all the load, everything that's actually happening. I can coach that stuff. But let's be careful in how much we ask for from our athletes. And so, for example, I oftentimes see this mistake happen on Train Heroic. This is on us actually more than it is on our coaches, but we'll see like warm-ups. And the warm-up will be like A1 through A12, right? And it's like A skips is A1. There's 3 sets of 10. That can be really cumbersome for your athletes. They don't want to track that they did 10 yards of A skips, right? So there's another format to program in. We call it a circuit, okay? So I'm going to hit new circuit to demonstrate what this might look like. And the big difference between a circuit is just nomenclature, it's just wording, right? Between an exercise and a circuit on Train Heroic is just the format, and it's how much data we're collecting. So a circuit, a good time to use it might be a warm-up or a cool down or even conditioning, where I do want to tell them what to do. I still want to coach them and give them the specifics. I just don't need to track all the volume. And I don't want them to take the time to say, I did 3 sets of 10 of A skips, right? So here's how this might look. So I'm actually going to program like dynamic warm-up, right? And, we're going to call this like our lower body dynamic warm-up. And the reason for that is I want to reuse this later. I don't want to ever create it again, right? I want to save myself some time. But this is going to be 10 yards of, and I'm going to go A skips, B skips, lateral lunges, 10 air squats, and inchworms, whatever. Probably a really bad warm-up. But I'm going to add some video to this as well. So this just looks like text to our system at this point. But I'm going to add some video. And specifically, I want to add all the movements that I talked about. So we've got A skips. I'm going to add more than one, though. So that's the nice thing about these circuits is that they're like this bunch of instruction and a bunch of video, right? So we've got B skips. We've got lateral lunges, right? We've got air squats. And lastly, we have inchworms. And hey, that took me a good minute to design. And hey, I'm doing it for completion, right? I could say, hey, this is maybe conditioning, so we're going to do it like for time, or we're going to actually track something. This is just for completion. And lastly, I'm going to adjust the category. This is prep work, okay? Now, I never want to create this again because I don't have time to do that. I've built it once. Everything you do here, if you do it once, there's a save and repeat, right? So here we're going to save this to our library. So there's an option to save a circuit to our library. We save it by name. Everything about it is saved. And so the beauty there is that if I ever wanted to program something else, like, let's imagine day 2, I'm going to go to day 2 and I'm going to add a new session. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to start with the warm up. I'm just going to type in lower body dynamic. Oh, here it is. And I have that as a starting point. So think about all the common things that you guys do. And we're going to save those things. So that's the difference between a circuit, right? And an exercise is just the format. All right. The last thing I'll point out is I talked about competition and this idea of competition. Anything you see, every section, you'll see a little trophy icon. And so it's your choice as a coach if you want to enable what we call a leaderboard. It's a really cool experience for the athlete because they get to sort of train with their teammates at that point. If it's one-on-one training, leaderboards don't make sense, right? You're not competing against yourself. You sort of just are inherently, but you're not publicizing your results for anybody else to see. So you won't use that for individual training. But if this was a team, I might say, hey, on the last set, I actually want to see max reps, right, at 75%. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to enable a leaderboard, and maybe I'm tracking reps, not weight, and I'm just going to tell them here, today's leaderboard is max reps on your final set of back squat. Okay, so I put some instruction in there, and now I've enabled this sort of, what was once a real life experience of looking across the rack. Right? And it could be anything. You can enable time for your 2-mile time. You can do, reps. I've seen creative things on off days where coaches actually program sleep. It's a number of hours and there's a leaderboard for who got the most. So not the best application of it, but my point here is that you can be creative with how you do this. So I'm going to go back to the program up top and just, you guys, let's take a step back. And I know this is getting probably long, but left-hand side, we've got our athlete list, right? We have our teams. We have our library, and that's where we are right now. And all we're doing is we're building this 4-week off-season football program, right? Because we got a phone call from a coach who desperately needs it. So we're building it, and we're going to then scale it to many people. What I'm going to do quickly is I'm going to just left click, and drag my mouse. I'm going to highlight just this one session, week 1, day 1, and I'm going to hit Control-C on my keyboard. I could hit copy down here, but I'm going to hit Control-C and then Control-V like Victor, just like Excel. I'm going to then highlight this session and just hit delete quick. So I've got this 3-day-a-week session. I'm going to quickly go into day 2, And I'm going to adjust day 2's movement. So instead of back squat, I want the same rep scheme. We're going to clear these filters. So anytime you add a movement, you get some filters on. I'm going to clear them. We're going to go bench, and we're going to bench press. Same rep scheme though, right? Instead of broad jump, again, clear the filters. We're going to go pull-ups. Okay, and then, I need to reorder our warm-up. Let's do the warm-up before we train. Okay, so we've got our warm-up. Now we've got bench press and pull-ups. I'm going to go back to the program. So I've got day 1, day 2, last. Maybe we're doing the same rep scheme. I know I'm oversimplifying this, but you don't necessarily need to copy and paste and start there. But now we're going to clean, and instead of broad jumps, I want to superset this with box jumps. Okay, again, let's go ahead and reorder the warm-up to happen first. So we've now got this training plan set up for 1 week, right? I might rename this to be day 2 and day 3, right? And again, last thing I'll do is just reorder this warm-up so the warm-up happens first. So I've got a week built, and what I want to point out here is like this took me several minutes to do, and I don't have time to keep doing that. So I'm going to highlight, copy, and I'm going to paste. So just Control-C, Control-V. Okay, so I'm here, copying. Again, there's an option here at the bottom to do the same thing. And I'm going to paste that. Are you guys seeing my screen right now?
Yeah, we're good. Yep.
Okay. Let me do a, I feel like I'm getting a little bit of lag here.
You're actually moving pretty quick, so that's good on our end.
Cool. Let's go here. And Justin, you're still with me? Like you see this move?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. So I'm doing a Control-C, Control-V. And you guys, just to simplify it, hey, let's grab these next 2 weeks and paste that. So I have a 4-week plan, right? Honestly, I'm probably jumping in here in week 2 and editing, and I'm adding load and progressing and things like that. But I have this 4-week plan. So when Jason accepts my invite, maybe he gets that, right? Or maybe I'm going to go to Teams, and I've had that communication with that coach. I have East High School set up. I'm going to go into their calendar, right? And I'm going to go and find that program. So I'm going to go to add for my library, go to programs. I have this 4-week program, right? So I go and say, hey, we're going to start this thing on some date. In fact, hey, we're going to start it on the 30th of March. I'll just do that so you guys can see it show up here. But the beauty is that once I do this, it's here, it's on the calendar. Again, I'm tweaking this however I need. The coach says, hey, we're training Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. No problem, right? I delete this maybe, and I start it a day later, or I just drag and drop things on the calendar. So that's the beginning of coaching. And then really to get into the coaching, if we go back to the home screen, it's reviewing results and actually acting on that. So you'll see, you guys, if I click just the Train Heroic logo in the top left-hand corner, this brings you to what we call Coach Home, okay? Again, this is all designed for your phone too. But what you can do, and so you think like Instagram, you're scrolling through, you're literally scrolling through and you're seeing every training card from every one of your athletes in real time. So that team that just got this training, right, I'm seeing each athlete and what they did. And I could filter this to look at just a certain team, right, rather than all my athletes. But if I see something I don't like, okay, hey, I'm going through this. I don't like this readiness score, right? Let me see more. And he says, crushed me. So if I hit see more, I'm seeing his whole training card, right? So I go through this. All right, I'm seeing the actual load he used, 170. Okay, I feel fine about that. All right, maybe there's nothing that I want to jump into specifically here, but I still don't like this readiness. I'm probably going to direct message him. And I'm going to say something to him, right? So like, yo, what was with today's readiness? You were 2 whole points below your average. You okay? Right now I'm connecting with him. So I'm coaching, I'm connecting. He might say, look, dude, I'm practice is going way over, right? So now I need to go and adjust his training, but this should set off that flag for me as a coach. So this Coach Home is an awesome way for you guys just to be in touch and in tune with what's happening. If you find yourself not liking these like small summaries, you can actually expand everything, and you're now looking at the full training. It's harder to get through all of it. So I like this kind of condensed view, and then I'm kind of a different elevation. I'm up here, and then I dive in. And I direct message, right? Especially if that athlete's interacting with me. So you'll see 2 things. One, you've got Coach Home, And then up top, you'll have like a messaging center. So this is a really cool way to do that last job, which is communicate. Right. So you'll see recent messages. You can message specific teams, or you can message directly. So I'm going to click teams. And so what I'm seeing here is this. This is what we kind of talked about in the beginning is like, boom, you have athletes kind of going back and forth. You're like, yo, who wants to throw some money down on the top spot for today's leaderboard, push-ups? I'm bored. I want to take someone's money. And you're able actually to do some cool things that you can hold down on an interaction, just like you can on your iPhone, and you can react to it, right? So if it's like, that whatever fire reaction, or, maybe you're clicking on this and you're laughing at it or whatnot, you're replying, you're sending a GIF. The bummer about a desktop or a computer is that you don't have the ability to throw video in there, but from your phone, you can do exactly that. So Justin, I'm way over on my time.
Oh, no, you're good. Anything else you wanted to go over real quick or no?
No, my plan was to pull my phone up and do this on mobile.
Sure.
But I don't want to bore people at this point. So we can go past that.
No, that's good. Let me go ahead and show you my screen real quick. Can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
All right. So this is like just one of my teams, right? Just so you guys could see some of the stuff that I do. And again, this is like, I could see the dashboard of the calendar of like who did what, you know what I mean? Like of what took place. You also getting like comments on things, which is really nice. So I could go in there and be like, oh, wow, this is how this person felt. And of course I press something back. Come on. Zoom slows me down more than any other application.
So Justin, are you using that? Are you oftentimes, so like Coach Home, what I showed you guys is pretty new, right? So the behavior, even to use that as your way to perceive how the team is training and stuff hasn't been a tool that we've had. Have you found yourself going?
I love it because it's on my iPhone. It's better on it's super easy to just be like, on the iPhone, I could just like pull it up and then scroll through what the athlete's doing and then expand the cards. So I like it on the mobile version, so I could see things really easily. When I'm on the computer, I program on the computer primarily. So when I look at things, if I'm programming, I'm doing things on the computer. I also like to look at like an athlete roster and figure out like what teams they're on. Sometimes you can put them on different teams, but then you get adjust the calendars individually. But I think one of the things that it's just such a unutilized tool is messaging. Messaging is like super important. I don't know why that's not working for me right now, but basically if I go to my teams and I could literally see who's on what team and what we're doing. So like in this group right here, I know I have 41 athletes in that program. I could look at the calendar and figure out like, so there's 3 sessions planned. So if I'm looking at like a dashboard, I could look at it and go, I have 3 sessions planned. Okay, I got to talk to either my coach on staff or I need to make sure that I do my job going in there and making sure there's stuff done on the front end. Now, obviously there's 3 days planned because today is Thursday, Friday, and possibly a Saturday workout. And then I got to just make sure I plan the next week. So these are all things. The other thing that I really like to do is you don't have to show everything that's planned. You can unpublish exercises, workouts, and then allow them to roll out to your audience as you so see fit. So this way they're not looking at 12 weeks of program and then they're like, this is what I'm doing, So I enjoy that a lot. If I'm looking at, this is like my pro group. And if I'm going in there, I could actually see what they do and how they're programming. One of the things I really like to do, and I think this is good because everybody on this call has their own kind of like coaching vernacular, right? You guys have your own, like the way you guys message. What do you like? So what do you call stretching? We call stretching flex because kids don't like to stretch. So if we call it a flex session, instead of saying flexibility, oh yeah, you get the jokes that you guys see on Instagram. One of my pros that thought he was supposed to flex in the mirror for 30 minutes, which was hilarious. Right. But again, like these are really good, good. Like you get a jackass like that says F you in your hamstring workouts. But what's really cool about these, the way I program here is again, like this is a GPP phase 2, day 1, right? So I have my structure laid out and I could go in there and I could literally now drag and drop that into the program. So the way I run like a naming convention of my workouts allowed me to organize things really well for them and for myself. The other thing is, I'll just go into this workout. So Jake's messaging on this one. I'm sorry, Josh. So if I look at this session, I could categorize it however I'd like. And I think that that's important for all of you that feel as if you have a certain thing that you call your warm up, right? If you call your warm up prep, if you call your workout, like, whatever it may be. I think that it's super important. I also like to preview my stuff on desktop so I know what that looks like. So there's just so much like making your life easier as a coach, right? For you to look at kind of what's going on. It makes it super easy for you to just go in there and make those adjustments. These circuits are really, really easy. I could drop in. So I have a core A. This is a phase 1, level 1. I have a level 2, level 3, and then I have phase 2, level 1, level 2, level 3. So now I could literally lay that out for the athlete all the way out and I don't have to remake this. So in here also, it's like level 2 is just the tempo change. The speed of movement's changed. Do you see that? So I already know that I want to use the same exercises. Level 3, the speed of movement changes and the rep scheme changes. It goes from 2. So level 2, I think, goes from just changes the speed of movement. Level 3 is 2 sets, and it goes a set of 10 and a set of 20. So the programming is already preset of where I want them to kind of guide, and then I could actually see where they are in a training thing. So it's really easy for me to kind of go through there and like look at everything that's going on. I encourage you guys to do that because what I've seen is you guys spend so much time programming and not enough time coaching. And if you could do this once, it's set forever. And I really just like my encouragement is that you get it going and then get it right. And then as you go through there, your biggest problem. So if I go to my messaging with my client, with my athletes, I go to messaging, athletes are probably going to message me their questions. More than anything, they're going to message me basically what are their biggest questions. So again, look at this case. What is a side bridge? You know what I mean? Like, kid, hey, we're scheduling calls with guys. So I sent them a link to schedule calls with me. It's really, really easy for me to go in there and see what they're doing. And then what are their questions like? You see what I'm saying? So now I know that this kid needs coaching on this. I can drop a video in there and send him a simple message, This is again, simple questions that this person's asked, but a good one was like, I want to see if I keep it going. Yeah. So she was asking like, what was the Van Damme stretch? So we're going back, what was the Van Damme stretch? So I made it pretty easy. That's the GIF that I used, right? Or GIF. So again, part of it is, again, how can I evoke my coaching personality through a digital connection without having them in person? You don't want to change who you are. You want to just enhance those things through the technology. You want to make sure that the technology enhances your behavior. So if you're a lazy coach, well, you'll just probably use whatever you got and just throw it in there. But if you're a coach that builds about the community and you want this communication, these would be the conversations that we would have with this athlete. It just so happens asynchronously, and it just so happens to be going on while, we're now quarantined. But by no means is it eliminating our communication. It's enhancing our communication. So, with regards to how we communicate with our athletes, we want to be able to enhance our exposure to them when they're not in the facility. If you feel like you're going to get through this, it's a really simple, you either decide I'm going to get through this or I'm not going to get through this. If you get through this and this is built right now, it is going to skyrocket your business tremendously, because now the number one thing that people have missing in their gyms is transparent communication amongst owner, operator, coaches, athlete to parents. You now have an opportunity to do this now, build this more than ever before. So when they come back to you, it's in order. We switched our gym. We flipped our gym within 2 hours. And we changed everything. We just literally made those minor adjustments. I did less supersets when they're in quarantine than when we do it in the gym, because there's a logistical structure to our workout, where an athlete comes from we have, 16 athletes in a group and they're breaking up between our equipment versus when they're with us, that's how we want to run through the timeline. When they're on their own, they're by their own. So I'd rather do straight sets. It's a little bit more optimal, but I don't have to worry about those logistics of equipment. So you could bucket your athletes into groups. I also like the idea of challenges. I like the idea of a way for your athletes to communicate amongst each other while they don't have their in-person connections. So this doesn't need to be perfect. It's a process, but the early part of the prescription is get it going, and then you'll get it right. I still am not happy with the way mine's organized because, at some point early on in this, I completely delegated this. I didn't want to do anything to do with it. And that was probably one of the biggest mistakes I made. So take ownership of it, do it. And I promise you'll find that how easy it is. And it's easier than it ever was. Like Train Heroic has grown tremendously as a company. It is, and they're constantly making updates and improvements. And I'm going to be a big advocate for it, but I also want you guys to know your clients, the user experience on the client's end is so much better than your coaching experience. So if you thought that was easy, get on it on seeing what the athlete's like, and you'll be a fan for life because it's so intuitive to what the athlete does when they go through it. It makes it really, really easy. So, Josh, any questions from the group that you guys have with your stuff that you want to put in there or things that Josh can answer?
I have a quick question. So tracking, say like, if we time 10-yard dashes, vertical jumps and things like that, would we create an exercise to add on their calendar, and then we would go into the analytics side to track the progress? Or how would you recommend, tracking broad jump, vertical jump, 10-yard dash times and things like that?
Yeah, you're spot on. Like that's how it'd be done for, a bench press or a back squat or a 40-yard dash. You'd create the exercise. Typically, we have most of those things already in the database. But if there was something like, let's say you have some, 300-yard shuttles, bad example, but let's just say you have a test that we don't have, you would just add the exercise, right? You add it as an exercise and then you track it, and we'd analyze that over time. We actually, and this is just like a gap for Train Heroic, when we first started, we were tracking all these like movements, right? And we have this concept of like a working max, and working maxes this is too technical to get into right now, but long story short is there are some things from a tracking standpoint that we don't do a great job of displaying for our coaches today. So there are some gaps like with some of these tests that the way that we're tracking all of it, but the way that we display it back to our coaches, it leaves something to be desired. So it's a gap for us and was a blind spot initially. So you should expect some of that stuff to get more robust.
And I would tell you guys, I got hung up with some of these things because, we're looking for that shiny object. We want it to do everything, but in reality, that's like such a small percentage of what is needed for us to show the results of the athlete. I actually screenshot some of their workouts. Like I put 2 and 2 together and I put them together like this in a single picture, and I'll send them to them. So it's like, as much as I used to be like, I want to see the graph, I want to see it beautifully displayed. I used to get like that all the time. And what I did is I just go to their workout like week 3, and then I'll go to the workout week, like say 12, screenshot it and show them like, look at the changes that you've made. I don't think you realize how far you've come in less than a couple months. And that takes 2 seconds of me to actually message them. And then I'll also sometimes send that to the parent too. Like, listen, Mike's been doing just an absolute great job tracking his stuff. And it shows the connectivity that we have, right? Look at him. I don't know if I always say this all the time. Like some of my messages, I chose that athlete particularly because I knew like we communicate, but I also know that some of my other athletes, I say like, make your damn bed. So I'll send them things that are like not training related on the platform, but I'll send the stuff to the parent where I'll be like, look, I don't know if they make their bed or clean up every day, but they definitely check in. They're doing a great job. I hope that you see their progress, So these are all things that you could still be communicating to them without having to see them in person. So I highly recommend you guys just using the communication tool. Even if the metrics aren't displayed a certain way, as perfect as you would want them to be. You guys are not sports scientists. Let the understand that you don't have to, it doesn't need to be perfect. That's the one thing I would recommend. Tommy, go ahead.
Is there a way when we're doing the swapping out the exercise, is there a way to set like, okay, hey, these are your 3 options. This is easy, this is medium, this is hard. So that when they go swap it out, they're not just freely picking whatever they want. Is there a way to narrow down that scope of like what's available for them to choose from?
Today, the best way to, Tommy, no is the short answer. Today, the best way to do it is just actually give them those 3 options.
Just write it on there.
Yeah, and that's something that we hear quite a bit. So we're exploring the best way to do that. We think an option might be for a coach. We thought maybe we could do it in the exercise library. So when you add back squat, there's like 3 substitutes. Then what we got into in doing the research was that's not actually good. It depends on the context within the training. So then we thought we'd make it kind of session specific. So today when I program back squat, because it's just with an empty barbell and we're doing it 100 times, you could do air squats instead. You know what I mean? So we're getting there, but yeah, today just instructions.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
So for us, one of the things that we've done is we use it in the instructions, right? Just like Josh was referencing. We did before that, we'd put all 3 exercises, like the advanced, the intermediate and the beginner, and then we just have them choose or delete those other 2. But it becomes really cumbersome when you then go back and look at it, right? So what we've done to kind of augment that tech issue is we put the week 1, we give them their choices, and then we go back into week 2 and each individual one, whichever one they chose, we then add that as that workout on their calendar individually. So, and that's just because I don't know if you guys know this, but if you have employees that are working for you, this really takes 10 minutes. It doesn't take 5 hours to do. It's easier to do in this platform than it is in your actual gym on a whiteboard. It's easier here than it is on a whiteboard because you could copy and paste, and then you could use a single session as the base to build your next session with some modifications. So it makes the whiteboarding session so much faster anyways. So giving this to a coach on your staff to be able to do is maybe an hour for about 50 to 100 athletes, depending on how individualized they get. CJ, you had a question?
Yeah, and this might be something because I'm new to the platform that everyone else knows, but is there a way that, say, myself and a chiropractor are both working with a particular athlete, we both have trained Heroic, is there a way I can see what that chiropractor is prescribing my athlete or that PT is prescribing my athlete so that I'm not kind of double dipping on that? Can we share an athlete?
Yeah, really good question. Absolutely. The way to do it is there's the option to add assistant coaches. So you'd add the assistant coach. And what happens, CJ, is that both those coaches are in the same kind of, we call it organization. They're in the same business. And so what you'll see is on the athlete's calendar, whether it's the PT or the chiropractor or, the speed guy, we see it all the time in the pro world. These guys have all these different coaches. So the athlete has their calendar, and when that coach goes to program, they'll see everything that's already prescribed. They'll be able to tweak it. Sometimes a smooth way to do it is actually just to add a separate session. So there's like 2 sessions on one day. But you can also just add blocks within the session. It just depends on how that, the communication is between the staff. We see it a lot, though.
There's no way. So when you do both sessions, they have to check in both times for the readiness questionnaire still?
Yeah, there's some goofy things with that. Multiple sessions, you go through a couple steps. Like the RPE would happen twice. And sometimes RPE for if it's just recovery is weird. So we actually recommend first just adding a block.
Yeah, so we've had the same issue too, CJ. One of the things that we've done is on the bottom of it, because I used to do things on the top, but on the bottom of it, we basically did circuits with instructions. So that last part is like a more thorough kind of workout, which has like all the descriptions, but it's not something I need to have tracked. It's a completion component more than anything. I also think it's super valuable to adjust where like they have prep. Use your vernacular that you would use in your gym. Don't be the one area where I get super upset with my staff is if they're lazy when it says strength/power. It drives me nuts. That's there as a guidance. You should go in there and make those adjustments to how you want your guys to what's the intention behind that session. It doesn't need to be so we have our 8 pillars of performance, and we have our own naming system, but we also sometimes use names for the intention of those blocks. So the intention of this block is X. That's what we want the athlete to see because it's really nice on the user interface.
Cool.
All right. Any other questions?
Hey Josh, do you is there a way to make it, say you have an athlete coming in, you're going through the whole intake process and whatever assessment you're performing on them from a movement standpoint, is there a way to make that data live with that athlete? So like if I don't have whatever assessment I'm doing, I don't have that sitting on a piece of paper on my desk, can I attach that to the athlete and make everything live online?
You can, yeah. So under athletes, we don't do an awesome job of this, Jason, but I see it all the time. And here's how it happens. If you click on the athlete from your athlete list, and maybe even sharing this, but if you click athlete, on the right-hand side, you'll have this kind of like drawer that slides out, and you can see things like, so don't click their calendar, but actually just click the row of their name. You'll see there's an option for account, and then there's notes. So we see it all the time, like, lower body injury, whatever, they broke their fibula in 2012, whatever the notes are. And oftentimes it's assessment. So we see like FMS tests, just throwing that on there. So if you ever want to, you can go to that and you can see the account notes. You're muted, Jason.
Got it. Cool. Thank you. I saw it.
Awesome. Cool. And hey, it's not a perfect solution at all. There's some limits, like you can't access those account notes unless you're on a desktop. So sometimes it's like, shoot, I'm on my mobile device. I needed to swap a movement for this athlete or whatever. Like you're not seeing those account notes there. So it's imperfect for sure.
There is, one of the things I do like is positional tags. So like you do sport tags, positional tags. I think that helps when you look at like your team as a whole and who's in there. One of the ways we've created a workout, like a single workout, which is the assessment. So that's something that we could that's the one workout. And then we could just copy that workout over every 3 months. Is what we do. One of like a strategy that we use is, so let's say we have, you guys can pick a number. Let's say you have four. Let's say you guys have 4 movements that you test in your evaluation, right? Like, so your assessment, there's 4 performance movements, right? Week 1, right? They're doing on day 1, they would be doing one of those movements as their challenge, right? Day 2, they're doing another movement as their challenge. Day 3, the following. Day 4, the following. And then we kind of always move down the line. So it's like an accordion. We just move down the line. So Monday, it's not the same one. It's Tuesday is a different one. So by the course of the month, we see kind of their performance progressions a little bit. And then we now know, like, can we test this athlete as a single day with all of those exercises with an expectation that they're going to hit these numbers. So if I really want them to work on one particular thing, I use that as the challenge because that's the intention of the day, right? The competitions or challenges I have always found to be very successful with maximum repetitions, time holds, or like jump heights. I don't like max effort numbers just because of the risk factor, but that also in a situation like this where people are quarantined, they're going to cheat. So you want the safety to be the biggest concern, right? So like what's the fallback on a max effort lift, versus a repetition lift, right? Or a vertical jump. What's the worst thing that happens on a vertical jump is they come down wrong, right? And they got to be jumping pretty high, or they got to be really unathletic to be able to handle that.
Cav, do you put that as an exercise so you can track it? So do you input it on the notes, or do you input in the exercise so if you go to analytics, you can track one person's, if their broad jump increased, their vertical jump increased, their 10-yard dash decreased, or how do you track that?
I mean, the honest answer is I don't, because I really don't care. I mean, I've been coaching for a long time. I don't think what I've learned is it doesn't make that big of a difference. But I use it from a parent standpoint, and I use it from a team culture standpoint. So I use it as challenges. So like your guys, challenges are really cool because there's leaderboards. So you guys have all been to my facility. We have 3 TVs that are set up, and when they walk in, the leaderboard's up and running. So we have a male leaderboard and a female leaderboard, and they just kind of roll through. So, but that's when we had everybody in the brick and mortar on one team. Everybody's on the same team. You know what I mean? Now that they're on different teams, those leaderboards should be only on certain things. So like lacrosse, like you could do a leaderboard for shots, right? You know what I mean? Like how many targets did you hit? And then you could have everybody challenge themselves. Like they did X number of shots challenges, and then that starts to build the lacrosse culture. You know what I mean, Josh probably has seen thousands of different challenges that work more effectively than what we do. That's just what we've done.
Dude, it's like training, man. Doing it, you'll get strong, right? And same thing with challenges. Like the desired stimulus is to create competition. There's not like a right or wrong. And I love my talk track, or my like recommendation for coaches is keep it simple. Do one thing. Sometimes I've seen like coaches like set up like, hey, everything's like a challenge. And, just one thing a day. And Javi, just to answer your guys' question specifically, like, yeah, you'd be able to do exactly that. You set up the movement, you have them do it, you can track it. The beauty of setting it up that way is I could track it over this like long stretch of time. If I wanted to see difference between October in 2018, 2019, right? But a real tactical implementation of it might just be you're talking to the parent and you're like, hey, look at the session on this day. All right, now look at our session here. I mean, enough said, right? We don't need to show them graphs. It's probably real time you're there. The beauty of a coach account is you have access to all your athletes on your phone. Like you literally can go, not just like the cards we looked at, you could go to their training session. Like you can basically hijack their profile as a coach.
So let me just see if I can show you. Yeah, so there we go. So this is my personal, like me as an athlete on my own phone. I just take a screenshot of this. It says my last workout was in 2018, so that kind of is accurate. But I would just take a screenshot of that and send that to the parent and just let them know kind of what they're looking at. Like, you know, we used to track reading time for some of the kids. Like, so we'd put an exercise, like read a book, and like track that just to mess with them a little bit. Obviously we have some kids that need to be doing that, but like, I think the easiest way, especially with your phone and the capability, is like, so early in my business model, early on, like probably 10 years ago, this idea of like a photoshopped, beautiful display of before and after was the wow factor for parents. Now more than ever, the wow factor is the individualization and the direct communication. So if I screenshot this performance number and I text it to the parent, they feel that is more value than this beautiful display that I created for them. So I think that's more valuable than the idea of sending them a like just beautiful before and after component. You know what I mean? Because it's like, this guy cares. Hey man, saw that they're doing this. Look how good of a workout they did. Bang. You know, you could also do that to coaches, right? So like if you're doing with sport coaches, that's a really, really good way to look at it. Cool. Any last questions for Josh?
Yeah, I got a question regarding the business side of it.
Why did it take you a year to get on the platform when we talked about it? Sorry, I'm just curious.
I got on it for whatever. Anyway,
I'm just kidding.
So for me, obviously this is to mitigate loss right now, and then also to start building. Like I've actually built a pretty big following for lacrosse on it. But when we go back and say we go back in our brick and mortar, how does this add passive income to either coaches, business owners, so on and so forth, on top of our memberships and privates and all that stuff? I know it adds value, but how do you build that? Like, what's the business model that you've seen coaches or owners put in?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I think there's a couple directions to take that. I won't sit here and say I have the right approach for everybody. It depends on where you're living, what your space is, you know, how close are we to capacity? What's my relationship like in the community? I'll just show you I'll talk through a couple of interesting things that I've seen. One of which is to actually just expand the business outside of the walls of the business. So I've seen this done really well by sports performance facilities specifically. And I think with this group, it makes a lot of sense, but it's now without any actual overhead, right? And it might be, hey, I have the whole group. I have like the women's soccer team or girls soccer team come in for a day and we do a session. It's high cost. It's high touch for me. I'm teaching them how to move. There's a lot of value there, right? And we used to charge $1,000 for this camp. But when they left the camp, I didn't see them again for 6 months, right? When I got them finally to come back. So what I can do now is I make intros like that. And now I have like a monthly subscription for either that coach or direct to the consumer, right? Direct to the athlete, where they're paying me. So if you do it with the coach, you're doing that access code thing that we talked about to the coach, and they're maybe giving you this stipend, like this one fee. If you're going direct to the athlete, it's a really cool model, but you can encourage the athlete to pay you directly if you don't get the support from the coach. That's one way to grow. I'll say, like, from a personal training standpoint, if I'm offering personal training at the facility, this allows me to do one of two things. If my limiting factor is staff, and I just don't have the staff to do it, I now can put a training plan in their hands that's maybe a little bit higher touch than just the sheet of paper. So I'm creating this kind of like an open gym type of environment where I might have a couple coaches on staff, but we don't need to be one-on-one anymore. Everybody has their own plan, but I'm using this to guide my athletes or my clients, and I can jump in and coach as I need to, or I'm doing very personal stuff, and then I'm giving you some more value, and that for that reason I can charge more. Those are a couple things, Nick. I'd say there are so many places to take this, but it is really specific. It's like a training plan. You got to kind of assess what our needs are, where our pain is, and things like that.
Yeah, I'm going to jump out there and just say, like, I'm going to use 3 examples right away, or 4. Nick, you need to create lacrosse programs, and you need to go global with them, right? CJ, you need to create baseball programs, pitching development programs, specifically niche down, create them, and then blow them up. You know, Javi, Rob, and Preston, like, you guys need to go, like, DB stuff, volleyball stuff, you know, football stuff, like, whatever it is, like, the right group for you guys, develop that, put that out there. Tommy, rehab focused. You got to be like what your niche is with who those groups are, create those programs and get it out. Jason, female athletes, primarily volleyball, primarily, you know, the sports that your girls work with. And then that's what you guys need to own. You need to own, stake claim in your market, right? I spent some time with McQuilkin from Power Athlete. He came out, we had lunch. We, you know, just kind of, you know, shoot the shit. Great guy. And I knew him when he was at Georgetown and I think Mary Washington. Before. Great guy. They run a great program. They don't train in-person athletes. They probably have like one team, right? They're in Austin, but they're a great group of people. I don't even want to ask Josh what the numbers are in regards to Power Athlete Online. Like, I don't even want to ask him. It's embarrassing when you think about how impactful they're being with communities, remote coaching only. Like, you know, they have a pretty cool setup at their own place, but they don't train. They don't have a membership model. They don't have a gym model. They're not training athletes one-on-one. They're using remote coaching, and they're absolutely crushing it. You know, I mean, I don't know how much they've grown on your platform, Josh, but when I talked to him, like, they're gung ho, you know?
Yeah. So those guys came to us like 4 years ago, and they doubled their business every year for 4 years. So our big challenge, you know, as that number grows, like, to say you double your business after 1 year is one thing, but so they're really, I mean, like, they have their work cut out for them to do something like that, but you're totally right. They do this entirely online, and I'm not advocating for that. Sure. I'm actually advocating sort of for, like, diversifying your guys' portfolio a little bit and saying, hey, I can do some things online. Like, you are not your gym. You're you. Like, I want to train with Nick because Nick is Nick, right? It's not like and don't get me wrong, the facility is beautiful, but even without that thing, you're still hugely valuable. And so I think you can decouple those and still deliver value to a lot of folks. Now we have, and you guys, I didn't want to maybe go down this rabbit hole, but we have, like, it's called like an online marketplace. So, and it's not for everybody. So I think we've had a lot of coaches build training and throw it in the marketplace and just hope that it would happen. And, like, don't get me wrong, it's a really good tool, but the real power behind that tool is marketing. So, like, if you have something that's commercially available, this marketplace that we have allows a coach to create the teams that we talked about. You can make those paid for, so they're monthly subscriptions, and then you market them. You need to market them. So you need to learn, you know, hey, how can I get content into the world that would help me market this team, right? How can I, and so Nick, like, for someone like you that has this big footprint in the lacrosse world, you create some virtual team for lacrosse athletes. Your reach then goes just from, you know, Southern California to, you know, everywhere around the, I mean, anywhere lacrosse is played. But it's not, even if the training's amazing, nobody's showing up unless you're creating content and directing people there, having your athletes post on social media regularly and consistently and pointing people there, right? Getting on podcasts and pointing people there. Like, and there's also, like, a paid advertising model. And we've done the research, and, like, there's a way to make this really equitable, but it takes consistent effort. And so I'm not by any stretch saying it's for everybody, because it's real effort to do it, and it diverts from what you guys are doing now. So you have to have a real plan, and we have a team in place to help our coaches with that. I just don't want to, like, flip everybody's business model over. I just, you know, it's not for everybody.
guys, diversifying your revenue income streams is like a high priority. We talk about supplements, we talk about online coaching, we talk about education, we talk about, different touch points with your current clients. But how many of you guys right now, if your clients came to your house or came to a small spot at a field, could you train them without any of the equipment that's in your gym? Every one of you. So the idea that we're attached to our brick and mortar is primarily because, we have a lot of pride in what we've built. But by no means does it mean that we need that, right? We don't need that in order to be a good coach, right? We need to care. We need to have education. We need to be able to deliver a way for our athletes that progress. And this, by far, is the ability for you to scale that with your time. The front end time that you put in, right, is going to exponentially help grow your business because it's going to allow you to become extremely efficient. And that's really what we want to kind of get to. So with that being said, Josh, I can't thank you enough. I appreciate you. I appreciate, the values that your business and Ben have really kind of been built on because, we talked about this earlier to my group, is there's companies that are trying to be opportunistic right now because they're in different places and they're trying to like save your gym, this, that, and the other. And then there's companies like yours that have been serving the market for a long time. They've been serving the market and they've been doing a great job with coach-centric, athlete-centric work. And it just so happens that now people understand that, through your platforms, they could absolutely not only diversify their income streams, but scale their ability to connect remotely with that same community approach. So I appreciate you guys, appreciate what you're about. But I want to encourage everybody, not just in my group, but everybody else that understands coaching, that you're not an online coach just because you do this. That's not what this is about. This is not about being an online coach, someone that's not connected with athletes. This is just a way for you to enhance your communication and enhance your coaching so you can do what you do better than what you did, beforehand. Come back to this in a better situation because now more than ever, these communication channels are in place. That's what I would recommend. Cool. Josh, thank you so much. Guys, thank you. And we'll talk soon.